Welcome back to the Relationship School podcast with your hosts today, Jayson Gaddis and Ellen Boeder.
Yes, we're here.
Thanks everybody for being a listener. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for being a person who cares in this wild world we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we want to talk about parenting a little bit today.
Mm-hmm.
And
challenges parents face.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And challenging parents. And we're going to challenge you parents.
We are. We have some observations.
Yeah, and this is mostly targeted at privileged parents, to be clear.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see through our clients, students, friends, just school, we just see things. Mm-hmm. And we like to see things. We are observers of human beings.
Yes. Yeah. And also learning about all these ways of relating to other humans and raising humans and being in connection, relationship with humans, and so how that all fits in and to parenting partnership.
Yeah.
Studying that, helping people with that. So obviously we're observing that out there in the world too. And
we are
talking to teachers and parents and other health professionals. And anyway, this is what we spend a lot of time and energy on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are we noticing out there?
Well, I brought up this topic to you because I was like, I want to do a podcast on when kids won't do what we want them to do. Yeah. Like, what do we do as parents? Like, if our kid, like,
defiant kids, or
just doesn't want to do the thing that we think they need to be doing.
I don't want to go on a hike. I don't want to put the phone away. I don't want to come to dinner. I don't want to talk. I don't want to whatever. Fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank. Yeah.
Yeah. So because kids naturally push back on parents' agendas, of course,
all day long.
Yeah, all day long.
Like you just said upstairs, you were like, parenting is like a relentless boundary practice.
Yeah. Good parenting. Let's be clear.
Good parenting. Okay.
Good parenting.
Involves boundaries.
Involves clear boundaries.
Clear, consistent.
Inside oneself.
Clear, consistent, reasonable boundaries that help grow a person into like a contributing, thoughtful, caring adult. Yeah. Something like that, right? Boundaries that support that trajectory. Mm-hmm. Like, this is how we do things. This is how we take care of ourselves. This is how we interact with people. This is how we respect others. This is how we take care of our home. Like all that, like boundaries everywhere. And like guidance and like a clear path to follow. Like kids need that.
They do. Yeah. Kids need you to be clear. Oh, this is good for if you're not a parent. This is still good life skill practice.
Oh yeah.
With your friends. Because some of you're not parents, but you struggle with boundaries with your family or close friends or coworkers. Yeah. So so please keep listening, even if you're not a parent. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's kind of bring this down to examples.
Yeah. So, I have so many, but some recent ones, maybe I'll just say the example and then we can kind of unpack like what was going on and maybe what to do.
And sometimes notice and know that sometimes we change specific details of our examples just to protect people's privacy. So we might change the gender, we might change the timeline.
We're trying to be respectful.
Just because we're seeing this shit all day long, but we want to respect people's privacy here.
Yeah. So, one scenario is where a child, I'll say around between 10 and 12, got into a fight with another child on the playground, like classic. Yeah. And the parents were trying to...
And parents were there.
The parents were there.
So this is not a fight during school where the teacher was there.
Parents were there. Playground fight, physical fight between two friends. Yeah. And both parents showed up and the kids were crying and we're going to try to help their kids work it out and like figure out what happened and what do we do now and all that stuff. Repair. I think that was probably what was on the parents' mind. And one of the kids would not come and deal. Just refused to come and
this is a 10 to 11,
10 to 12.
10 to 12.
Somewhere in there. It was somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And this child's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk to my friend. I'm not going to talk to any of you. Like, I'm not doing it. And so this other family had eventually left the playground and went home, and the kids never did any kind of repair, acknowledgement, ownership. Again, we're not huge on apologies, but an apology could have been in there.
That could have been in there.
But really ownership, acknowledgement of impact, repair. What do we do? All of that between two friends who already even had a relationship and have an ongoing relationship. But it didn't get to happen because the parent was like, well, my kid won't come and do this.
Oh my God. There is so much wrong with this situation already.
There is.
It's brutal.
What do you want to say about that?
I want to say, well, clearly this kid who said no, and I don't want to do that, has their parents by the balls. Okay.
God. Has a lot of power.
And way too much power.
Way too much power.
Kids that are 11 and 12 in this age don't want that much power. And then the parents, of course, will pathologize the kid and say, yeah, they do. Or
just, well, my child's difficult.
My child runs the house.
Strong-willed.
Right. My child's special needs. There'll be some, answer that basically lets the parent off the hook. Mm-hmm. That it's your parenting job to hold the line with your child to work that thing out. So the child could have said, no, I don't want to. And the parent could have said, that makes sense.
Yeah, this is really hard to do. You're having a lot of feelings.
And we'll stay here as long as it takes for you to come over here and have this conversation.
Yeah.
So if we are here all night with sleeping bags, we'll do that. And the parent has to be willing to hold the line.
And cancel your plans.
Cancel your fucking plans. We had dinner plans. We have a sitter coming in an hour. We had a date night. Well, that's all off because your job in that moment is to hold the line with your kid.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully you've been doing that since they were little. So
right.
I think that a lot of this I see start with toddlers. Infants are easy because they just don't have a lot of capacity to do much for themselves. But once they get to toddlers, I see parents really struggle with boundaries there because they don't want to upset their toddler. Mm-hmm. And then the toddler ends up having a lot of power. Or there's a lot of, like you said, explanations for, well, my kid doesn't like to do that, or my kid really struggles with that,
My kid's really sensitive,
or they don't, there's a lot of reasons why
it's all about the kid.
The boundaries don't get, figured out and held. And I get that, different kids might need different boundaries and need that to look different, but there still should be some kind of trajectory towards this is how we do things, and that the parents are leading. That's the thing. I'm I lead your family with your values. Lead. Folks. Leadership would mean, because that kid, that 10-year-old or 12-year-old, however old that child was, had been in fights before with other kids because kids get into fights with kids throughout childhood. And
fights can be fist fights, or they can be just arguments.
It can just be an argument or hurt feelings or someone took my toy away. That's what I'm talking about. A conflict with another child. And so you have practice, endless amounts of practice to be like, oh, when we get into a conflict with someone, this is what we do. This is just what we do. Yeah. We have our feelings about it. Maybe we take a minute till we calm down. I help you. Mm-hmm. We navigate this conversation. And over time, that child is learning how to do that without your help. That might take them till 18 maybe, but by 10 or 12, they would know that I get into a conflict with someone, I deal with it. That's the expectation. My parents support me with that. That's just what we do. Yeah. And this child did not learn that. Yeah. And so I do see that with people with 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds. My 4-year-old won't, whatever.
Get in the car.
Won't get in the car.
Go swimming.
Doesn't want to go do this thing that we want to do as a family. Doesn't want to go on a hike, let's say. Granted, our hikes when our kids were 4 were 100 yards long. it was very small sometimes. That was like a big hike, actually, maybe like more like 50 yards. But if we as a family wanted to get outside and enjoy nature, regardless of kind of how our kids felt about it, that we were going to do that.
Yeah.
And
because of our values.
Because that's like, it's like, this is what we do in our family on a beautiful day. And even on a rainy day, we take a walk.
Outside. Yeah.
And so, but some parents really struggle. They're like, well, my kid doesn't want to do that. So so then we don't do it.
And then the parent is off the hook and doesn't have to learn anything about boundary setting.
Which is boundaries are.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, right?
It's a whole growing journey that we have to learn as parents. And then again, I have so much beef with the way parents blame their kids.
Yeah.
The terrible twos, just that term.
Yeah.
The strong-willed 2-year-old to 3 to 4-year-old. It's all about the kid. Like when do you ever hear a parent say, "My 2-year-old is tough," my 2-year-old is strong-willed, and really it's my responsibility to take good care of that strong-willed 2-year-old or 4-year-old, and I'm struggling setting boundaries.
Yeah,
I need some help.
Yeah, I'm struggling with how to parent my child when there's things they don't want to do that we think are important for them to do, or we want to teach them how to do, and I don't know how to do it. That's doesn't put any of the labels on your kid, even if you're trying to be sensitive to who your kid is. They still need, and maybe it's the word boundaries. It can feel like, I think to some of us at this generation of parenting, like we don't want to be authoritarian. Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. Authoritarian?
Yeah. Authoritarian. Yeah.
Where
like
it's regime. We don't want to be like that. We want to care about our kids' feelings and be empathic and cooperative and have, get them on board with stuff versus just telling them how shit should be done or dealt with. However, that takes leadership to create, I'm struggling with the words. There's authoritarian, authoritative or something. There's something in between that's, I don't even remember the word, but
they work for me. Yeah.
Something in between where it's there is leadership and there are boundaries and there's clarity and the parenting supports that. Mm-hmm. I think parents just struggle with that. We're trying to be understanding of our kids. We're trying to not be assholes as parents. Yeah. But then we've lost this tone in our nervous system to lead and direct them towards, no, this is how you do a good life. Yeah. You play outside, you repair things with your friends, you sit at the table while you have dinner. Yeah. This is how you be a person.
You do your chores.
You have chores. You help with the family.
We're helping you become an adult, and it's going to take 18
It's going to take 18 years to get all that stuff in your...
And we're going to say goodbye to you at 18, and you're going to be capable of meeting life. Mm-hmm. But instead, parents turn their head in the other direction. Yeah. Because they don't want to... These days, especially educated parents... They don't want to be the regime. Right. Right. And they don't want to use fear and control. Yeah. Yes. And that's not what we're saying. We're obviously not getting into the how too much yet. But we're saying you need to be the pack leader, as Cesar Malone says in The Dog Whisperer. Right? Oh,
Cesar Malone. Yeah.
He's Malone. And you need to be the leader, as you're saying,
calm and assertive.
Of your family.
Calm and assertive.
Yeah. His whole thing is, if you want to be watch good parenting, watch The Dog Whisperer.
It's really good.
It's amazing. And if they had a people whisperer, a parent whisperer, I know there's some parent bullshit reality shows, and it's not like this. You can learn so much by watching this dog owner be the pack leader. Yeah. Anyway, be the pack leader of your clan, your little family of 3 or 4 or 6 or whatever, how many kids you got. And without fear and manipulation and bribing and control. We haven't bribed our kids, I don't think, once. No. I don't think we've ever bribed our kids. No. And... there's been moments where I've used fear probably 3% of the time in the life of our kids. Mm-hmm. Out of reaction, an or else or a reactivity. Yeah, because I was so fucking triggered. Yeah. But it's how do you lead your family without fear, control, and manipulation and bribes? Right. How do you do that? Well, you're going to have to learn something about boundaries. Yes. And what it feels like to uphold a boundary that is hard for your kids. Because that
is true. Like they challenge our kids to kind of, it gives them a structure.
Yeah.
And to grow into. Like, that's how I think of it, is like they need a structure to grow into. If it's left up to them and how they feel, we have no structure. We have no trajectory that we're moving towards. It's all based on whether someone wants to or doesn't want to do something, which is a really disorganized way to live our life. Like values should be guiding our life.
Yeah.
And then that contains our feelings, because we get to have our feelings too, but it contains the feelings into like, I don't feel like going to work today, but that's my, that's what I've agreed to. I made an agreement. I'm going to work today, and I'll cope with my feelings, or I'll take a nap during lunch. Like, we'll do whatever we need to do to kind of take care of ourselves within that structure. And that is what we're trying to teach our kids. Like, you get to have feelings, or maybe, you signed on to this team and it's not fun. You're not liking it. Let's give it some time. Let's try it out. Let's have, if this, but we aren't reacting constantly to how we feel. There's we have to be able to tolerate some discomfort as human beings.
That's like
that's the ongoing
practice.
Teaching is, can our kids tolerate being uncomfortable in the service of being true to their values?
Yeah. And can we tolerate our discomfort when we hold the line with them?
And being true to our values. Because we're creating our family culture. Like, we're creating a little world here, and a culture that has norms and values and ways of being. Yeah. And it's a really cool thing to be able to do, I think. Totally. But it takes leadership, clarity. You and I have to support each other, because it's not always easy and it's not always clear, but it's super important.
It's vital. Yeah. I think we could tell many stories. I'm thinking of a couple other families that really struggle here. So maybe we could mention a couple of examples. I just want to mention one important test. It's sort of like where you are on the boundary spectrum with your kids. Oh. Now, let's just say they have to be older than 4, okay? Okay. For this test. Is your kid's bed made? And if your kid didn't learn to make their bed consistently over time, to me, you have a boundary problem. Now, you might say, well, I don't value bed making. It's just not a thing. But if we can teach our kids to just make their bed every morning, I think that's an extremely valuable life skill. And it's a test, because here's the thing. A lot of parents judge and label their kids as messy. And they never made their bed. They would never do it. And again, it's all about the kid's blame. Instead of that, it's, well, did you ever hold the line? Like, you can teach a kid to juggle. You could teach a kid to do dishes every day. You could teach a kid whatever. Anything that they were resistant to. I had to learn piano growing up, and I fucking hated piano. But my parents held the line. So it's like, what if you just followed through? Like, we had our kid wouldn't make his bed. He was kind of a messy kid, generally speaking. And we trained him to take better care of his bed and his room. And now, for the most part, his room is clean.
It looks great.
But if we drifted here over the years, his room would be a disaster.
He needed He needed our help to figure out how to keep his room organized, and definitely to make his bed. And you guys had some mornings where here's an example. Exactly. So no fear, no bribing, and no manipulation. But clear expectations up front. Like, hey, dude, this is the expectation. When we go to school, your bed's got to be made. And I don't want to be the nag or the reminder, whatever. And this is when he was, 5 or 6, No,
7?
I think he was like 2nd grade, 3rd grade. Yeah, okay. 7, 8.
And, clearly the age where you can make your bed. And I'd say when his bed wasn't made, I wouldn't say anything. And I'd get out in the car to go to school. And he'd jump in the car all excited. And I'd say, we're not leaving. Why not? Dad, because your bed's not made. And then he'd throw a tantrum and go inside, huffing and puffing, and go make his bed, and then get back in the car. And all that, I had to only do that like twice.
Yeah, I think it only happened
twice. And it was done. He got it. He was like, okay, I'm not going through that again. Exactly. So, because he knows his dad is deadly serious. I'm not fucking around here. And thankfully, he's made his bed pretty much every day since then.
Yeah, and he actually is not an inherently organized kid, right? In that way,
totally.
And where our other child is, she's been making her bed since she was 2, and we never even asked her to. Like, that's just what she likes. Right. But he has learned to value that. He's learned the value of being organized of his room. Now he likes his room like that, and it's not excessively neat, but it's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's like me. Him and I are similar. Like, I just do a good job. I don't do a great job. I do a good job.
That's like our minimum requirement for while he's here, and maybe by the time he's 18, that will be something whenever he leaves.
Yeah.
But yeah, those kinds of things. So there are ways to, work with your kids' challenges, and maybe sometimes it's like just focus on one thing at a time. Like I think when the bed making was a thing, that was kind of the only thing we were really asking him to learn at that time. Like, and it wasn't like, and you have this, and you have that, and you have that. It's like, we're really going to make sure let him get that in him, and then move on, because there's another thing coming.
And he's been, since then, he's very disciplined now about taking care of his fish and cleaning the fish tank.
Oh yeah.
He's like developing responsibility that's going to help him in life. Mm-hmm. And so if you're struggling with boundaries with your kid, you got to keep seeing how it's going to help them be successful in life.
Right.
And tie it to what you care about and what you want for them. And pretty much every single parent I know wants their kid to be a high-functioning, successful adult, young adult, into their late teens and early 20s.
Yeah.
Well, that's on you.
I mean, it is.
It's on you.
It's on us.
And again, not fear, manipulation. You can do it in a heart-centered, firm, calm, and assertive, caring way.
Yeah, with clarity up front, with like, this is what we're going to expect. Yeah. This is why. Yeah. It's okay if you don't get it. But this is important to us. Yeah. We're your parents. Yeah. This is what we want for you.
This is how we roll. Greetings, listeners. Thanks for listening. Are you new to the Relationship School or my work? If you're new, you'll probably want to head over to relationshipschool.com/group to join our free private Facebook community that's growing, that's huge, and very, very active, where you can get challenge and support around your relationship issues, problems, inspirations, wins, losses. There's our certified coaches are in there, and there's just a big group of like-hearted, like-minded people. If you feel yourself like alone, God, where do I connect to fellow podcast people? It's this place, relationshipschool.com/group. Okay, I do Facebook Lives in there occasionally. I answer questions. And you're going to also get access to some free recordings, okay, that no one else has. So relationshipschool.com/group. And so the kid we were talking about earlier that got in the fight on the playground, that those parents aren't seeing that by allowing their child to just stonewall this other kid, they're actually perpetuating the kind of relationship she's going to have as an adult. Like, her relationship life is doomed if that keeps going on. And often I had a teacher that we both had, Dwayne, who would say that sometimes what you see at school or what you see in your therapy office or what you see is often the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
So you can kind of make an assumption that that's, if we're seeing it out in public, I guarantee in private it's going on all day long, where there's just these struggles where the child just continues to say, no, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that. And then nothing happens.
Nothing happens because the parents aren't willing. And then they go, what should I do? And they send the kid to play therapy. Or they send the kid to something, wilderness therapy if they're an adolescent. Right. My kid's fucked up, so fix them. Yeah. Instead of saying, I struggle. I don't know what to do. I need a class.
Right.
I need to go to therapy. I need to see what's stopping me from holding the line. And what you'll find is, what Ellen was saying earlier, you're just afraid to be really uncomfortable for a few minutes while your kid freaks the fuck out. Because they will. When you train kids that you don't really have firm boundaries, they're gonna lose it.
It's gonna be hard.
They're gonna tantrum and lose it no matter the age, and resist and white knuckle it.
The older they get, the worse it will be.
And the worse it gets, and the harder it gets to implement boundaries. So start as young as you can.
Start young with leadership and guidance. I'm thinking of a family that I've worked with that they have a 14-year-old that they're worried about because they're seeing a lot of they're seeing their child like not follow through on a lot of things and sort of just kind of do whatever they want. Like one morning,
do whatever the child wants.
Do whatever the child's kind of doing whatever the child wants. And the parents are like, we're worried about this kid getting into a decent college and having a decent adulthood. And meanwhile, they don't know how to intervene.
Yeah.
And they have, they're acknowledging we've never known how to intervene. This child has always kind of been the center of everything, and sort of what they want is what we end up doing because this child is so intense when they don't get what they want. And this child at 14, like, woke up one day, was like, I'm not going to school today. I don't want to go. And so the kid didn't go. Like that, it was stuff like that. Like they had no way to, that there was no expectations that this child had some kind of structure they needed to adhere to or respect, or this is how you deal with things. This is how we deal with things when you don't feel like going to school or when you don't feel like doing something. It was just sort of, I don't want to do that, so I'm not doing that. I'm going to stay at home and I'm going to have my phone and I'm just going to chill in bed today. No, like, again, there's so many ways to go about that differently. Like, hey, mom and dad, I need a day off. I'm struggling. Like, how do we do, work? There's lots of ways to work out if you need a mental health day and all of that, but this had nothing to do with that. It was just, I don't feel like going. And so I'm not.
And the parents were scared. So
I'm going back to bed with my phone. And so these parents came into therapy and they're really struggling with, and they're really worried about the future for this kid. And so we're working on is how to start, because they never have, implement guidance and structure really based on the parents' values, like what the parents want for their child.
Yeah.
And trusting themselves, like, that what they think this 14-year-old needs in order to be a high functioning adult in the world that's contributing, that has values, that has a desire to connect with others, like all of these things the parents want for them. They're really scared.
Yeah.
They've been really afraid to just trust that they kind of know what's best, because they haven't wanted to be overbearing. Yeah. And overpowering, but because they're worried about that, they've been letting the child lead, and they've accommodated and they've tiptoed around. And now they're really worried about the choices this kid is making, and of course our adolescents they have choices to make around drugs, alcohol, sex, screens, there's big things that could really impact their mental health. And they feel like this child's really vulnerable because they have no authority anymore with this child. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just like painting the picture of,
I know a similar family.
You want to be doing this from the time that they can walk. Yeah. Because that's when they start needing boundaries. That's when it starts. They need safety. They need love and care. They need to know you've got them, that there's, that they're not in charge, and that their upset feelings aren't what are dictating what happens, that values are dictating what happens, that a bigger picture, and we can be upset inside that picture at times, but ultimately we're growing and developing.
Yeah. It's almost like I'm hearing you say that, you come back to this a couple of times, how the importance of having where are we going as a family, and what do we where are we going?
What do we stand for? What do we want for our children? And what's it going to take to get them there? Yeah. Because a 3-year-old...
Because otherwise you're dealing with just kids' emotions, and then you're reacting to their emotions. Ellen and I have done a podcast on that, and letting your kids' emotions run the house.
Yeah, and the parents feel resentful. They feel manipulated. They feel like, why is my kid so hard? I have this really hard kid, and some kids are harder than others. I will acknowledge that. Like, they're just harder to parent, and they need more from us, and that can be steep. There can be a lot to learn there. I don't want to invalidate that. And if we're the parent, that's our job, is to rise to that occasion and get the support we need to continue to grow this person into the kind of adult with the skills and capacities we think they need for life and for navigating this world.
So what did that family do? What did you coach them to do? around that kid?
Well, it's sort of a bigger,
because you're not working on parenting necessarily. You're working on
no, but we end up
right?
talking about that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I have a couple that's parents and they're struggling with parenting, we get into that. Obviously, it starts with the parents being collaborative and understanding, there's a lot to process just as a couple around our experience as a parent and what we're struggling with and how to support each other and how to, because they have to get, they have to be really connected and good to each other in order to lead together. You can't be leading in two different directions.
Yeah. So that's a whole nother podcast.
So that's a whole nother podcast.
How do we be a team? Like we've recorded probably hundreds of episodes like that.
Yeah. But. And then it is just, I think me just empowering them to have boundaries and to trust that they have a good sense of what this kid is going to need as a grown adult. And they have 4 years left to do it. And I'm just saying, that you have leverage still. This child is living under your home. This is
tons of leverage.
You have leverage. And once they're out, you have way less leverage. You have way less capacity to parent and steer things. And so I'm just supporting them with, and they have lovely values. Like they want this child to be able to have a job and do, just be a person who is contributing and enjoying their life.
Yeah.
And they have totally reasonable expectations. And I'm just supporting them with yes, cool. Do that. Yes. And it's going to be challenging at this point, this late in the game to change how you're parenting. But you can. It can be done.
Absolutely.
It's just harder.
Yeah. I have a client turning that around right now, that similar thing, that 14-year-old daughter and, chronically on the screens. And it was made harder by the fact that they're getting a divorce. So you can't, and the other one parent is totally enabling the kid to have the phone whenever they want. And the other parent is like, wait, this is actually fucking up their life. So, in your household, if you're a split household,
right.
You can have phone boundaries. The biggest leverage you have is with a teenager with a phone is take away the fucking phone. It's so simple, and make them pay for their phone and work to pay for their phone. There's lots of creative ways you can take the power back without the fear, without the, manipulation. It's just like, look, these are our family values. This is what we stand for. This is where we're going. We want you to be successful. You're clearly demonstrating you can't handle the responsibility of the phone. So we're taking that away. And you can earn it back. And here's how. And you're off social media, and here's why, because it doesn't align with this family values. But as soon as you get a job and you start demonstrating that you can handle this responsibility of access to the world on your phone, great, you can have that.
Yeah.
And I just think, and this parenting couple I'm thinking of, like you're saying, they didn't set boundaries early on.
Yeah.
So they raised an incredibly defiant, lazy, unmotivated, valueless, emotional child. You have to understand what you're doing to kids when you don't lead and you don't set limits. We did a podcast way early on, and kids feel safe when you set limits.
And your expectations are clear.
Yeah. And, like, there's a container here. Someone's holding me. There's things I can and can't do.
Yeah. An adult, we're adults. We know how complicated the world is, how much distraction there is, how challenging it is to just have an overall sense of well-being. There's a lot we need to be learning and practicing as we get into adulthood, so that we can navigate the screens, the amount of information, the challenges to our lifestyle, sitting at a desk all day. How do you counter that? There's all kinds of things we have to be paying attention to, what our bodies need, our minds need, how important relationships are and connection. And you have childhood to do that, because once they're out of our home, they get to do whatever they want. You can be on your phone all day if you want once you move out, or you can eat whatever you want once you move out. It's all cool. You get to go make all those choices, but we have a chance to really provide them nourishment on all these levels, nourishment of being outside in nature. There's kids who don't want to go outside at 2 years old or 5 years old or 15 years old. And you can still
make them go outside.
We do a walk each day, or we do, because this is good for us. And this is enjoyable and this is pleasant and you don't even have to like it or enjoy it, but this is what we do. And they can keep that with them as they grow older. They can let it go. They can come back to it in 30 years. Like that's what we're providing is structure, life experiences, because we know, because we're adults, because we struggle with or navigate those things.
Yeah.
We get to decide.
Totally. Yeah. And I just want to say, as we kind of start to wrap up here, so we could talk for
I know we could
days
talk for
this.
days about this. You can
I was reflecting as you were talking about my childhood, and I was like, you know what? My parents had pretty good boundaries. There were some weird kind of emotional boundaries sometimes, but for the most part, they had good boundaries. Now, there was often done with some fear.
Yeah.
And, you know, from a really stressed out, reactive place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just grateful. I'm just feeling some gratitude for my parents for having some boundaries, because I think that helped me a lot.
Yeah. And even though all the values didn't line up for you, potentially, like your family values were very clear. Yeah, they were. Like, this is how we spend our time. These are the things we do. This is how we participate in the world. Yeah. You have chores. You didn't have a ton of choice about that because you're in that family. Yeah. But there are pieces, even though you aren't maybe sharing all the same values as your parents anymore, there are pieces of all of that were valuable to you. Yeah. And I think that a lot of us as parents of this generation are, we're trying to be more inclusive of our kids' feelings.
Someone at the door.
Oh, there is?
Yeah. So let's wrap it up.
and just struggling. That's one of the reasons, struggling with boundaries. But we don't want to upset our kids and we don't want to hurt our kids. And I get that. And they still need guidance and leadership. Yeah. And, you know, remember, this is a privileged conversation. Yes, this is about... You have the privilege to actually learn about parenting and boundaries. Don't waste it. Get in there. Set some limits, people. Your kids are going to be grateful one day. Yeah. Even though they throw tantrums along the way. Yeah.
Hey, Dad. I wanted to ask you a few questions about your book, Getting to Zero.
Okay, bring it on.
I haven't read the book, but I was wondering, what ages do you think should read the book? Like kids, teens, adults?
Right, that's a good question.
And teens, is that 12 to 18, or is that like...
Yeah. I think it's best for adults. Yeah. And a teenager, if they're in pain here, or they want to work through conflict with their parents or their siblings, or a girlfriend or boyfriend or someone that they're close with, they could actually read it and get a ton out of it. Yeah. Kids your age, cool. I think you would get a little... I mean, Lucian, you love to read books. So you plow through books in a day. No problem. A 500-page book, this kid will read in an hour. So you're a great reader, and you could read it, but I think you'd be a little bored at times. Yeah. Yeah. You'd be like, what is he talking about?
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Why did you write this book?
Because I want to live in a world where people know how to work out their differences, you know? Yeah. Mom and I work pretty hard to help our home be like that. Our home is a good place where when we get in conflict, and you and Neva, your sister, get in conflict, we can get to a good place again, right? Yeah. A lot of people listening grew up in families where that didn't happen. Yeah. It was just kind of swept under the rug, or it was like, oh, get over it, you're kind of emotional, or, you know, I just went outside and played, and that's not really getting to zero, you know? It's kind of trying to avoid it. So I wrote it because I want people to have tools so they can't say, I don't know how anymore.
Wow. I think that's a cool message. I want the world to be a place where people are able to work through their conflict and stuff like that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
One more question. Okay. What does getting to zero mean to you?
I know, that's a really good question. Getting to zero means getting back to a good place again. Zero is the happy place where we're cool again. Mm-hmm. And anything above zero, 1 to 10, 1 through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, is when we're activated, we're feeling off and bad with another person. Yeah. And mad or sad or whatever.
We got in a fight or something like that.
Yeah, and so we're just kind of jacked up in our nervous system or our bodies. We don't feel good. And so zero is we learn the tools in this book and we get back to zero, back to a good place again.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. I haven't read this book. I know Dad put a lot of effort into it. I think you guys would love it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for asking me such great questions.
Sure.
All right. Go to gettingtozerobook.com to order this thing. As you know, I've dedicated my life to helping people with their relationships, right? I want to solve this problem so that all of you can work through your differences and have fulfilling, amazing, badass partnerships and relationships, family, coworkers, friends, whoever. And I have trained a ton of relationship coaches, almost 100 certified relationship coaches, to help you specifically work through your relationship challenges. So I want to invite you to a special deal we're offering to the podcast listener where you can get 50% off your first month of coaching with one of our amazing relationship coaches. Okay, if you're tired of therapy, it feels like that's going around in a circle, or you want to actually set goals and accomplish your relationship goals, hire a relationship coach. Okay, go to relationshipschool.com/get coaching now, and then use the coupon code FIRST50 to get the 50% deal off your first month of relationship coaching. Super psyched to have our amazing coaches serve you and help you get to the next level. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Share one of these videos with a friend. We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships, and you are one of them, so thank you.